Welcome to the MPFFU podcast. The intent and purpose of the MPFFU podcast is to support the mission to improve wages, working hours, and working conditions for its members. This podcast will disseminate evidence-based relevant information, resources, and strategies. To accomplish this, the MPFFU podcast will provide reliable, factual, and actionable information that strengthens, empowers, and supports the MPFFU members and locals through united action. Now our host, Jeff Lassers.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 2 of the MPFFU podcast. I'm Jeff Lassers, and I've been a firefighter paramedic with the West Bloomfield Township Fire Department, Local 1721, since 2004. In this episode, I sit down with Lieutenant Mike Mattern from the Dearborn Fire Department, Local 412. Mike is an integral part of his department's peer support team, as well as the chairperson of the newly formed MPFFU Behavioral Health Committee. Behavioral health is a big deal, and Mike is here to give us the lowdown on the state of behavioral health in the first responder community, as well as describe various resources that are now available to our members and their families. During this episode, Mike will help us appreciate the value of the MPFFU and its locals. Then he'll describe the role and functions of the MPFFU Behavioral Health Committee and tell you where you can find more information. Finally, Mike will provide an overview of the Wayne State University Frontline Strong Together program, which was collaboratively created by first responders and mental health experts. Frontline Strong provides 24/7 live support, effective resources, and cutting-edge services to prevent and alleviate PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other frontline work-related mental health challenges. Go to fst5.org for more information. Need help now? If you are experiencing any crisis, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, financial, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG. Check out the show notes for additional details. I really enjoyed my time with Mike, and he's taught me a lot. This turned out to be a clear, concise, and informative episode that provides our listeners with a sobering look at the state of behavioral health in the first responder community. Like I said, this is only our second show, and there's always room to improve, so please email us your feedback and tell us what you think about the show, or send us ideas for future episodes to mpffupodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out the new MPFFU Instagram account at m.p.f.f.u. And finally, please subscribe to the Michigan Professional Firefighter Union YouTube channel, where you'll find all sorts of informative and funny podcast content. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well.
All right. That's good to hear.
So, Mike Mattern, who are you? What do you do, and where do you do it?
My name's Mike Mattern. I work with the Dearborn Fire Department. I've been there 17 years. I'm on the peer support team there that we started about 5 years ago. I'm also on the Western Wayne Hazmat team and our department special operations team as well. Over the past couple months, also became the chairperson of the MPFFU Behavioral Health Committee.
Fantastic. And now, are you a firefighter paramedic over there at Dearborn? Are you an officer? What do you do?
I am a lieutenant at the Dearborn Fire Department.
What do you guys ride a box there? You ride a ladder, an engine?
I ride an engine 4. If I need to, if there's an officer off, then I step up. But engine 4 is my engine right now.
Right on, man. So before we get into specifically the Behavioral Health Committee, you've been an IAFF member and an MPFFU member for a long time. So help us understand and tell our members why you think they should appreciate, value, and understand the role and function of the Michigan Professional Firefighter Union and its locals.
Well, they should definitely understand the brotherhood of the locals and the union that they're with. Just like anywhere else, they're always there for you when you need them, no matter what. If you need it for behavioral health or EMS, or you're having problems at work, the union's always there for you. They're always working for you to improve your lifestyle, your mental health, contracts, your work environment. So, knowing how they work and how they operate is probably one of the most important things, because they do a lot that helps shape your life on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's like they're only existing to objectively identify the things that make our life safe, healthy, good, and assure that we have a collective look towards that future. So it's only existing to help our members. And then the union is made up of, obviously, constituents of locals, but those locals really drive the objectives of what the MPFFU does. That really starts at the conventions, and the conventions, they decide the objectives of each committee. You are the chairperson of the Behavioral Health Committee at the MPFFU state level. What is the committee? Why does it exist?
So the committee was formed this past convention where the membership came and said, hey, we really want to branch off from the Health and Safety Committee and really form a behavioral health committee to really focus in on the mental and behavioral health of firefighters within the MPFFU and across the state. So there was a vote that was done, and it was voted in by the membership that this is a committee that they wanted to partake within the committees of the MPFFU to really focus in and start pushing mental health forward.
You're the chairperson of this committee. It's made up of a group of people, 13 current members, actually. Who's your vice chair?
Vice chair is Chad Hyvanen of St. Clair Shores. And then we've got Jake Steichen from Traverse City, Joe Rothfleisch from Shelby Township, John Farah from Sterling Heights, Kirk Vogler from Marquette, John Davis from Hamtramck, Corey Butler from Garden City, Dave Weatherwax from Grand Rapids, Sean Abbey from Kentwood, Colby Taylor up in Peninsula Township, and then John Polson from Midland. So
it's a strong group of humans.
Those guys, I can't say enough about them. Anything you give them to do, it's done, and you don't even have to worry about it. A bunch of brothers that really want to push this thing forward, so we're all moving in the same direction.
How does this organization meet? How do they convene?
We convene quarterly at the committee meetings, but if need be, we've also had some informal stuff, seeing that we're a new committee and we're trying to get issues rolling. We've had some informal get-togethers as well to really get our stuff together and really start moving it forward.
So the membership decides the objectives of your committee and who's on it, and then you go forth quarterly, get together, you physically do it in between. I'm sure there's like a billion phone calls, emails, text messages, smoke signals, messenger pigeons, all that stuff, right, to get it done. So tell me, what is it you do?
We really broke the committee up into 3 different areas. We've got prevention, we've got intervention, and then we've got education. And we really wanted to break it down into those 3 areas. The prevention portion is we really want to focus on how do we stop things before they happen. Give the members education to know what the roadmap looks like, because no matter what, none of us come out of this unscathed. We're all going to have those runs that you're never going to forget. And it's really how do we educate the membership and say, all right, if these runs happen, what do I do? And why am I feeling this way? Because that way you're not feeling alone. Like, okay, why am I feeling like this, but that guy is not, or vice versa. So you really give them the education prior to that to really teach them like, okay, hey, look, listen, I know I'm going to feel this way. I'm feeling how I should. That way it's not that much of a stigma attached to it. It's like, okay, I'm feeling how I should. The intervention portion is a lot of it when we start talking about peer support and CISM teams. That's really kind of what we did was we went in and we standardized what a peer support team is within the MPFFU and the state. That was because the peer support stuff is so brand new that there was never really a standardization. It was kind of like the Wild West. Everybody was kind of doing something different. And what we really wanted to do was when you pick up the phone and you call and you say, hey, I need a peer support team here, you know what you got coming. So if this is a large event, I start looking at a type 1 team. Type 1 team is really, you're bringing the whole house. You've got your peer support training, you've got your CISM training, you've got suicide prevention intervention training, you've got critical communication training. You also bring your own clinicians with you that are just attached onto your team. You're really bringing the whole package to where you go. And then just a step below that is a type 2 team. They're able to travel the same as the type 1 team, but they don't have the clinician component, but they'd have all the other training. And then your type 3 training is a lot of your in-house training, where the bare minimum of a peer support team now in the state of Michigan, you have your peer support training and your CISM training. So you can take care of the traumatic call-outs with your CISM, where you're doing diffusings, debriefings, those types of things. But really the peer support stuff is a day-to-day business. The person who's going through a divorce or their kid is sick at home, and the daily things is really the bread and butter of what we're dealing with on a daily basis when it comes to peer support and behavioral health. Because we all live lives outside of the job. Then you go on these runs that are traumatic and put some stress on you. So you're compiling onto the stuff that you're living outside of work. And we all bring that baggage into work because it's called life and we're all human. So with having both of those skills on it, you really get to the people where they need to be. It's a life issue. Yeah, we're going to do some peer support stuff, see if we can do that. And then if it's a traumatic call out, we got the CISM training. We can go in there and diffuse and debrief you and get you to some mental health professionals if you need it.
So when we're talking about prevention and intervention, I know there's also treatment. Let's just touch on prevention, the before and intervention during. The prevention really is designed for our current and retired members, and really with future members in mind, right?
Absolutely. We take care of current and retired members, their families. We're talking about anybody who really needs it. We're open to everybody. It's not just if you're on the job, it's only for you. we realize that the stuff that happens on the job really goes into retirement. You carry it the rest of your life. So to just take care of you while you're here on the job is irresponsible. We want to take care of everybody and their families, because the families deal with just as much stuff as we do. So it's important to make sure the whole picture is covered.
Yeah, you got your new employee that you need to say, hey, you got to be on the lookout for this. Well, how do you know that? Well, you know that because you got a retiree telling you.
Yep.
You know, in another episode, we talked about cheat codes. And a cheat code of having somebody who's been there, done that, it's reading the future. They can tell you what's going to happen. And some people's mental health is exacerbated in a negative way when they retire. Some people find a new lease on life when they retire. Some people are lost. And I think what you're saying is that we're making sure we cast a net large enough to capture the people that were here, that are gone, and that are going to be next.
Absolutely. We're really trying to change the culture where you start your career with this mental behavioral health training, and it takes you throughout your career into retirement. And we're just starting that now, where we're hitting everybody, but we want to paint as wide of a swath as we can with this behavioral mental health stuff.
So some of that prevention stuff, it sounds like, is peer support development and maintaining a team within your organization, or at least glomming onto a team. And then offering other types of education and resource, like number one, suicide intervention and prevention trainings, like recognizing signs before somebody verbally says anything, knowing when you need to step in. Or maybe even, like you said, pre-service curriculum that focuses on the behavioral health of our future members to empower them. Because it feels like at the end of the day, this is all about resiliency. We're gonna have bad days. That's even before we're firefighters. You're gonna have a bad day.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to go to work and find out we're a part of somebody else's bad day, and sometimes their worst day. And like you and I were talking yesterday, you had like 4 people's worst day of their lives in one day.
Yep.
Right? So you got to take some of that, right?
Yes. And that's the thing, is we're not going to act like this doesn't happen. We all know it happens. We all have the runs where you can close your eyes and it's like you're right back there. But if we can teach you how to deal with it and how to kind of put that armor on to really be resilient against it, that's a huge portion of this. The prevention is just as important as every other part of this.
Absolutely. Now, the intervention part of that, when prevention didn't work or it broke through that barrier, like you said, it's going to happen. You can't prevent 100% of problems. You can't nerf the world. But what we can do is be prepared when we have a breakthrough case or something that's going to get through that need problems. So I think the number one intervention things that I've seen that is objectively amazing is that you started from a bigger incident and worked your way backwards, and from a point of a crisis for a single person and worked your way backwards. So by establishing those teams, you don't have to trust that every single agency has a peer support team yet. You know, if you have a bad incident like Oxford had in the last couple of years, or many other communities have suffered, or maybe a tornado lands and tears a bunch of things up and ruins a bunch of lives, we have a mechanism now in place facilitated by the MPFFU to call and deploy a type 1, 2, or 3 team like you described, and that's amazing. Some of the other interventions that you're trying to do is empower those peer support teams to really train and make sure people are aware of what problems might be happening. But when those do happen, we move on to treatment. Talk to me about what your committee is doing to assure that the appropriate people and resources are there to get treatment for our people after the incident.
There's a lot of different assets to that. There's a lot of different avenues that we're looking at. We're trying to get as many of these peer support and CISM teams out there. So we're trying to bring financial backing so we can get some training into the state to get teams trained for peer support, for critical incident stress management. We're working to get the PTSD presumption in Lansing. That's a big, lofty goal of ours, so that the treatment will be covered. You won't have to pay a dime for it. What we're also trying to do is work on getting cultural competency with clinicians within the state, because you talk to any firefighters around the state, whenever they try to go talk to somebody, you hear the same stories. They either were throwing pills at you, or they just want to hear your war stories, or you may have made them cry. And it's like, you have to find those cultural competent clinicians who know how to work with us, who know how to deal with us. And that's what we're really trying to do, is go out there, find them, and actually teach them about us. So then when you go talk to them, it's like you're talking to one of the peers. I mean, it's not going to be the same, but you're going to have somebody who really understands what you're doing. So that's another one of the things that we're trying to do. And as well, we've partnered with Wayne State to create the Frontline Strong website. This is a program Wayne State created. And what they did was way different than any other program that we've ever seen out there. Instead of clinicians coming to us and telling us what we needed, the clinicians came to us and said, what is it that you need? You drive the ship, you tell us what you need. And that's what they did. And they branched it out. It's police, fire, EMS, corrections. What they've done is really create a skeleton work of a mental health program within the state. So you can go to this website, which is www.fst5.org, and you can go on that website and you can find a peer support team. You can find clinicians that have been vetted. When you're looking for a peer support team, it's done by region, and you can look and see what are the different things that each peer support team brings, if they're a type 1, a type 2, and you can find those culturally competent.
Maybe vetted. They've been vetted through a process for guys like you that said, yo, you're going to walk into a situation. Here's the spectrum of your humans you might encounter. They're different from the general population in these ways. They're not better or worse. They're just different. I have a 4-year-old and I have a 1.5-year-old. And eventually, like every human, they might need therapy. But I'm going to take them to a child psychologist or therapist, right, in those situations. I wouldn't take them to just anyone. Well, it's like a first responder. A child has a very specific mind. Well, a first responder's mind has been cultivated in a certain way. And to untie those knots sometimes needs a nuanced approach. And it sounds like Wayne State is doing an amazing job of first trying to understand the problem. Yes. Setting up a structure of safety to make sure we don't lose anybody that we can capture immediately, and then zeroing in on the foundational issues and getting to the core and inoculating the greater good.
Yes, exactly. They've taken a whole approach to this from point A to point B. You can find your peer teams, you can find your CISM teams, you can find your clinicians, and also they've got a number that you can call that's 24/7. If you can't use a computer, you don't like using a computer, you can call the number, which they have on the website. You can also, if you're in crisis, call that number, and they've got crisis counselors 24/7 that will talk to you, get you the help you need. If you need to get in touch with a peer support person, they can put you in touch with a peer support person. So what it's really done is the days of, okay, where do I turn to? Where do I call? Who do I call? When you're in that crisis or you're thinking like, man, I'm the only guy that feels like this. Why do I feel like this? And you feel alone. There's that phone number, there's that website, there's somebody there 24/7, and you can talk to a crisis counselor, you can talk to another peer support person. You're not alone. The access to services now is way further ahead than we were even 2 years ago. So there's always access to that help. Another resource that you can use, other than the Frontline Strong resource, is the new 988 phone number, which is the National Suicide Hotline. So we want to make sure that gets out there as well. That just changed over in the past couple months. So if any of the members out there are contemplating suicide or feeling suicidal, you can also dial that 988 number and you can get contacted right there with the National Suicide Hotline and get you the help that you need.
So problem number 1 was making culturally competent, objectively qualified resources and humans available to our first responders in need. Second was creating a structure to understand them over the future. And the third is just getting it available and making sure people know, A, you're not alone. B, we have a way to help you. And C, here is the physical numbers and locations you can go that we can get you help right now. And it doesn't need to be for you. It could be for your best buddy.
Absolutely.
It could be for your boss.
Yep.
Or somebody who works for you. Or maybe your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whoever.
Yes.
Maybe your kids are having a problem.
This
is set up for that.
That's one of the good things about this website is it's not just for behavioral and mental health problems or if you're in crisis. I mean, they've got things on there if you've got financial problems, if you need childcare. It's really a whole life approach. It's not just for you, it's for your family as well. So you can call this number and get all of those resources for that because let's face it, if you're having some financial problems, that really bleeds into your mental and behavioral health. That could be causing the stress that you're dealing with. So if we can fix that financial problem, then we can help with your behavioral and mental health on top of it. So it's really a whole person approach of what we can do to try to help you to reduce those stresses and reduce the stuff that's bothering you.
So the website is fst5.org. Frontline Strong is the name of the organization. It's by Wayne State University. We're definitely going to try to get them on here on the show and talk more about this. I know Mike's very passionate about it, and that is just one avenue of resources that we're trying to make available through the MPFFU to its members and their families. Now, there is prevention, there's intervention, there's treatment, and then there's education. So, number 1, we're kind of doing it right now. We're educating our members, retirees, and anybody listening on the existence of this and some resources. Why is it important for us to educate local, county, and state government leaders?
Well, it's very important because for many years, this has been the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it's going on, but nobody wants to talk about it. And to get everybody on board and to learn about the stresses that not just firefighters, but any first responder, it goes even further, doctors and nurses, even with this past pandemic, that have been going through, and the toll it takes on their mental health, their family's mental health. The more we can educate these leaders who are really the ones who can really get a lot of things moving in regards to legislation or getting things in that city or getting things in the state or the county and the resources to make it happen, if we can educate them to say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. This is what we need to make our jobs easier, to make our mental health better. When you improve that mental health, you're also getting a more productive employee on top of it. So if we can really educate the movers and the shakers who can get this stuff done, a lot of this can be done very quickly, but we need everybody in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, looking at the same goal. And that's really when you educate everybody and give them that education of what's going on, that's what helps moving this thing forward.
It sounds like that's how we got cancer presumption.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's how we're going to get PTSD presumption.
Yes.
Talk more about that and why it's important that our local leaders understand why we need to get that.
We're losing brothers and sisters to suicide every day. This year alone, we're having one of the worst years for suicides in the state. And what we have to figure out is what we're doing in the past isn't working. So we really need to get out there and we really need to get this PTSD presumption. We need to get all these other programs on board to make it easier to get access to these types of treatments and reduce the stigma that's attached to mental health. One of the biggest things that we hear when people are looking to get in to see a clinician is, well, how much is it going to cost me? Because their insurance may not cover it. So if we can get this PTSD presumption, you wipe that right off the table. It's no cost to you. Listen, we're taking care of this. It's obviously from your job. So to get that, that's just another stressor that's reduced. They may have financial problems. Now they went on a couple bad runs that they didn't ask for it to affect them, but it's affecting them. And now because they got financial problems, they're like, well, how am I going to pay for the treatment to make things better? My home life is terrible because of what I'm dealing with. And now I got to try and pay for treatment. Well, that's going to make things even worse. And then they don't go do it. So then they're left to their own accord and then they start going down a certain path. If we can get this PTSD presumption, that does a lot to not only break down that financial burden of it, but it breaks down the stigma of it. It's like, hey, listen, we know you're going to have this. We know this is a good possibility because of the job that you do and the things that you experience. It really kind of breaks down that stigma and they go, listen, we recognize you guys are dealing with this and that's okay. We're going to do something to help you with it. So to get that PTSD presumption, that's everybody going, listen, we understand you guys need this. We understand what you guys are going through. How can we help? And that's how you can help us.
Now, that same idea needs to be transcribed to the general citizen population. You know, they vote in those elected officials. What is important for them to understand about their first responders' mental health?
One of the biggest things that the public needs to understand is, you know, I've heard this from some of our mental health professionals. The general public in a lifetime experiences somewhere around 6 traumatic events in their lifetime. First responders can do that in one shift in a half a day, multiply that by 25 years. You can only stuff so much stuff in a backpack before you can't carry it anymore. And what they need to understand is the people who are protecting them need some protection as well, because they're going out there and they're dealing with those things that you don't talk about with other people. You see things, you experience things that you don't talk about with other people because it's stuff you don't even want to talk about. But they need that protection to keep doing that job, to keep protecting the public. And the public needs to realize, and you hear it sometimes, people, well, you know what you signed up for. Yeah, we all knew what we signed up for, but we also need protection from that because we'll go into that house that's on fire. Did we know we were signing up for it? Absolutely. If we get hurt, we knew what we were doing. But the thing is, if we can prevent that and we see an avenue for prevention to keep us safe, to keep us mentally safe, because if we asked for a brand new fire truck or brand new turnout gear that protects us from fire, people are okay with that. But the mental health stuff you can't see. That's something that's not tangible that you can hold and go, yeah, we did something.
Until it's too late.
Until it's too late. Yeah. You know, turnout gear is tangible. You put it on and it protects you. You can't see what going to a clinician does or talking to a peer supporter or going to talk to a chaplain, what that does. That is protection for your mental health and your behavioral health. So if you let the public know, like, hey, this is protection for us too, hopefully that'll move things forward and go, all right, we need to do this for these people.
Yeah, and it's also important, I think, that people realize if they want to have a strong first responder community that protects them when they need it, their first responders need to be physically, financially, and emotionally protected.
Yes.
They need to have wellness in those areas, because if all three of those pillars are there and they're solid enough for you to maintain them on your own with the collaboration of the organization you work with, you're probably going to be okay in the long run.
Yes.
And that's the goal here, right?
Yeah. And we all love doing our job. We love coming in. We love doing our job. We love going out and going on EMS runs, going on fires and protecting the public. But we need some protections to do it. So.
Absolutely. We need the gear mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of your goals to achieve that, short and long. Hit me with the highlights. What are some of the short-term goals of the Behavioral Health Committee at the MPFFU level?
Well, we've come up with some short-term and long-term goals, and I'll tell you, a lot of our short-term goals in the past 6 months have been completely done, knocked out, and they're being implemented. The guys on the committee are really hitting a home run with this. One of our things was to get the website and the phone number through Frontline Strong. That's already active. It's open. It's running. It's ready to roll. So members have access now 24/7. We wanted to standardize peer support in Michigan, and we did that. We have now standardized peer support and team typing, which was a short-term goal. What we're working on now is going out and speaking to the district meetings, union meetings, and start educating our members on the Behavioral Health Committee and all these resources that are now available. The other thing is we're working on training right now to hopefully push out to the membership on how to use Frontline Strong, how to get a hold of clinicians. We really want to get that educational portion out. But some of our long-term goals that we're really working on now that we've knocked out a lot of our short-term goals, educating and teaching more peer support teams, getting them up and running, getting up CISM teams up and running across the state, standardizing SOPs when it comes to peer support, standardizing how to start a peer support team. So if there's a department out there that goes, well, I want to have one, but I'm not really sure how to get this going, we can hand it to you. Go, here's your guide. Let's get it going. If you got questions, let us know. We'll run you through it. But like I said, some of the other bigger portions is getting PTSD presumption through the legislature. We want to change the curriculum when it comes to teaching at the fire academy and really bolster that mental health portion within the fire academy to really hit home these core ideas and core values when it comes to behavioral health pre-service. So when they come into the service, they've got that resiliency. They've got that armor that they can put on. And really it's just kind of working with some different organizations within the state to try to get things moving forward.
Sounds like very worthy goals, and it sounds like you guys have been super hard at work, especially since you've been in committee for 6 months?
6 months. We got a lot done in 6 months.
Well, when the baseline is 0, I guess if you do something, you win.
Yeah, no, it's getting to the point where we're working on like contract language. If you want to put mental health or things like that within your contracts to really bolster that within the organization. And also we're working on having a class to accredit physicians to work with first responders within the state. And that's through Wayne State as well. But that's another one of our long-term goals is you will come out of school with an accreditation that says, yeah, I can work with first responders.
Yeah, like a pediatric nurse.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
a pediatric physician.
Yes.
It's a first responder physician.
Yes.
It's huge.
So we, like I said, in 6 months, I can't say enough about the guys that are on this committee. They're working their butts off to get this stuff done, and they're knocking things out left and right. And I'll tell you right now, we're not stopping until it gets done because we all look at it like every day that this stuff waits is another day we might lose somebody. So it's like you're almost working against the clock. And a lot of us had to deal with the mental health system in the past, and we saw it was flawed, and we saw the flaws. And basically what we're doing is fixing the wrongs that we saw in our own lives moving forward to make it better for the members from the rest of the state.
That's amazing. As we back off away from your committee a little bit and we talk more about the value of the MPFFU, we're talking about one column of the MPFFU structure, and that's behavioral health. It's a very important column. It's very important. They're all important. But as we close out, it's really important that our members get more involved. Involvement's huge. Involvement, whether you're doing peer support or fill the boot or you're covering somebody on shift so they can go to a union thing they need to handle for you on your behalf or whatever that is. I think the number one thing is to start with your local e-board and go to meetings.
Oh, absolutely. I think you got to start at the most basic level. And that's just like you said, going to the union meetings, being part of the process, making the decisions for your own local. Educating yourself about the issues that are going on, not only in your area, but in your district, in the state, wherever it may be, because an issue in one part of the state eventually bleeds into another part of the state. And the more we can kind of get together and learn about each other and what we got going on, the stronger the union becomes, because now we're educating each other on these things and going, well, this is what worked here. We can help you over here with this. So educating yourself on everything that's going on with the union does nothing but benefit you personally. If you want to get involved in your union, I would definitely get with your local e-board to begin with, and you can start working there. If you want to get more involved with peer support, you can get a hold of any of us on the committee. We have a tab on the MPFFU website that will have our contact information so your locals can get a hold of us. And we'd be more than happy to come out to you, have a conversation. If you want to start a team, we'll get you rolling on getting a team started and give you the step-by-step directions. We'll hold your hand and walk you through it. It's not that scary of a process, and we'll get you all set up.
Sometimes that's the hardest part, is like everybody knows you need it, everybody knows you want it, everybody's like willing to participate, but it's like getting it on paper and making it yours and getting it off the ground. That's the hardest part. And then once you're rolling, it's enjoyable to a degree.
Oh, absolutely. The first step is always the hardest step, but after that, it rolls. And a lot of this stuff, it doesn't come from the top down. A lot of the stuff is grassroots. It starts at the bottom and works its way up. And that's how it works so well, is it's coming from the membership. This is what the membership wants. And you curtail it to the membership, and it seems to work out real well because they're the ones that drive it forward.
Couldn't agree more. Mike, Thank you for your time.
No problem.
That is all for the show today, everybody. Thank you, Mike Mattern, for joining me on the second episode of the MPFFU podcast. If you'd like to contact Mike, you can find his email in the episode description. Please check out the Frontline Strong Together program at fst5.org, brought to you by Wayne State University. And remember, if you are experiencing any crisis right now, work-related, substance abuse, depression, relationships, financial, or any other, reach out by calling 1-833-34-STRONG or go to fst5.org. Go out there and get some help if you need it. I really hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, this is only our second episode, and there's always room to improve. So please email us your feedback and tell us what you think about the show, or send us your ideas for future episodes to mpffupodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out the new MPFFU Instagram account at m.p.f.f.u. And finally, please subscribe to the Michigan Professional Firefighter Union YouTube channel, where you will find all sorts of informative and funny podcast content. Have a great day.